Time to make a cabinet. Most of the cutting has been done, and so it's time to start making the boxes. So this is going to be the top, this piece right here. It fits like that. So I'm going to use this pocket jig to cut angled holes in that top piece that angle in that way and bite into this piece of wood. And this is a middle cabinet. I've separated them into 4 different pieces. So if I make a mistake on this one, it's on the inside, so you're not going to be able to see the sides of it. So I figure if I'm going to make a mistake. So the pocket jig kit that I bought, the Kreg, comes with these screws that have square heads on them. I don't really like those. I like the star bits better, the little star shape right there. So that's what I'm going to use. And I bought a special star driver that's longer to get into the pockets. So I'm going to give it a shot. I've got this thing clamped down to try and get it as square as possible while I'm putting these in. I'll probably have to tweak it a little bit later. So we'll see how it goes. Well, this didn't happen the last time I built cabinets. This first one, I checked it using a square on all 4 corners. Perfectly square with that. But the best way, like I mentioned before, to test it is to measure the diagonal. Just put the end of the tape right in the middle, and then measure the distance to the other edge. Do it both ways. Thing's perfectly square. So I guess I'm getting good. All right, lesson learned. So this screw right here, the silver one, came from the pocket jig manufacturer, and it's got a hard edge, a collar on it, so it can only go so deep before it stops when you're driving it. Whereas the star bit that I used is flared, so if you put a lot of torque on the drill, you can go in too far, which is what happened right there. It popped out. So anyway, that's why I did it on this inside cabinet, because there's going to be another edge right up against that. No one's ever going to see it. And the fix for that was to just set the torque setting on my electric drill to a lower setting so that it wouldn't drive it in as far. So, lesson learned. Next step is to put on the backing board. When I had this thing sitting on that edge, and I pushed slightly on here, you could feel the whole thing, the whole box kind of rocking. So it really needs this backing plate to give it shear strength. So this is 1/4 inch masonite. If we were doing something inside and fancier, you'd use a 1/4 inch plywood that has a good face on it, something similar to, you know, these faces. And I'm just going to put it in with these panel nails. One little issue is I went too deep with my router right here, and so I've just got a spacer. I put a spacer in here so that this surface that goes all along there for the backing board on this piece is going to be level or close to it. There we go. Moving on, got rid of all that stuff and marked out the location of all the studs, marked out the limits of each one of the cabinets, and it looks like I'm going to have to shift them over about a 1/2 inch because the very left one ends right here, and that's the stud. And I want them to both have at least hanging on at least 2 studs. So I'm going to shift them all over a little bit and putting in the first nail strip. So I cut this thing so it's exactly flush with the edge. And now I'm angling it in this way, tying it in with some 1 5/8 inch screws. And then these things are gonna be what the cabinet hangs on. Here is the bottom strip about ready to get screwed in, and I used a countersink bit, as I did for the top one as well, to make a indentation so that screw is going to be flush. The head's going to be flush. You don't want it sticking out. This whole surface needs to be flat up against the wall. The right hand door is ready to drill, so I'm measuring out from the side, putting a little mark, and then continuing that mark on both the cabinet and the door. I've got the door lined up from edge to edge, so this is a good way to make sure your hinges on the cabinet and on the door are going to match up right. By the way, a general rule of thumb is you want your hinges about 15% of the total length. So the total length is 36, so 15% of that is about 5.5 inches. So that's what we're going with right here. Still working on the doors. So this right here is a template for installing these hinges. So that's where the center of a 35 millimeter hole gets drilled. But before I drill into my cabinet again, I'm gonna do this on the drill press this time because I haven't installed the doors yet. So this is a 1 3/8 or 35 millimeter Forstner bit. And so I'm gonna align this fence so that bit goes dead center into that hole, and then lock it down, and I can put all the doors through here and drill it perfect. I'm also going to be able to set the stops on the drill press so that my depth control is perfect and it doesn't go too deep and go through the piece of wood, or too shallow where the hinge won't fit. So drilled the holes in the drill press, and it looks good. So that's the center line of the hinge, matches up real well with the other line I drew on the inside. And now we are going to I'm going to install these things, the clips. So that thing's going to get centered right on that line. So I'm going to extend that line out a little bit with a square and make sure it matches up right in the middle of that thing. All right, so the clip is centered. I'm going to take this center punch and center punch a couple of small little dimples to start the screws, and I'm going to screw it in with a screwdriver. Short clip here on installing these hinges. Holes in there, so they need to be square, and I can't use this edge because I chamfered it to open. Instead of handles, I'm going to have a chamfered bottom. So I'm going to use this setup to square it up. Get it nice and square. And then center punch it. A little tap to get the screw started. It's right in the center of the holes. And I'm putting them in, screwing them in both at the same time, because if one's slightly angled, it'll kind of tweak that thing, and you want to keep it square. So right now it's looking pretty good. I'm just going to put pressure on it with these squares while I'm screwing it in. A little bit on each side. And since this is plywood, you really don't want to over tighten these screws. All right. All right, here's my assistant. Evidently, it is time for squirrel patrol. So she's got to take care of that. Anyway, here's the setup for the chamfer or bevel, if you want to call it, for the bottom of the door. I'm going to use this jigsaw. You can see it's cranked over at an angle and run it this way. So this guide, this was trial and error, about 3/4 of an inch away from the edge gives me the bevel that I want, and then I tacked on this, I didn't tack it on, but I put it this piece of scrap in so I have a chance to guide that, guide the jigsaw into the piece of wood and get it straight and true before I start cutting. Okay, so I just tested out a door. Looks like everything fits. Wanted to talk a little bit about the hardware. So these clips that attach to the cabinet, I like these because they have these little grippers right here that make it really easy to install them. They get installed the exact depth that they're supposed to, and they're easy to line up. And then these clips just fit right there, right into that slot, and then they snap into place just like that. The screws that came with this hardware are number 6 cabinet screws, 5/8 inch thick. This is 3/4 inch plywood. And if you'll notice, I hand tightened these things with the screwdriver, all of them, because plywood's not a very hard wood, and I didn't want to use a power drill and drive those things and start stripping out the plywood, because once you do that, you're in trouble. So that's why I hand sunk all of those screws. And then there it goes, the closing. It's the soft close model, kind of like watching paint dry. So, ready to hang them on the wall. Well, I spoke too soon. Went to hang the other door, and it runs into the one that I put in previously. So I'm going to have to adjust the hinges to spread the doors apart so that there's the proper gap there. Okay, much better. So the way you do that with these hinges, which is another cool feature, is this screw right here adjusts the door either this way or this way. And then that screw right there adjusts how much of a gap is in between the door and the frame of the cabinet. So I just tightened that screw down on all 4 hinges. I think we're good. Before I put these in, I wanted to show you a quick thing. These are the nail rails that the nails are going to go through to nail it to the studs. So I've got one up here, one at the top of that, and one down at the bottom. And then this is the wall. I've already installed one of them, so I'll film this one. But those are the studs that are drawn. So I found a conduit in a box when I was installing that, one to my left, that goes about through there. So that's why the top nail rail is going to be down here. I don't want to run the risk of running into that conduit. So I'm going to extend these pencil marks so I'll be able to see them when it's installed through that gap right there. You can see those little pencil marks that I made before I try to hang it. All right, about ready to go. So I bought these. They're called the Third Hand, made for setting cabinets. If you get just one person, it's a little tough, and these things, they work great on that one that I already installed. So I'll be using those to lift it up into place. You'll also notice that, I should back up, another way of doing this instead of putting these in is tacking up a 2x4 or 2x6 or something to act as something that you can rest the cabinet on while you're screwing it in. But I'm going this route. The other thing I wanted to point out was these studs. I first located them approximately using the stud finders, but I knew I was going to be doing this by myself, So I didn't want to be drilling screws and missing the studs. And so anyway, I found every stud with some small drill holes. I can get away with it on this wall. It's just going to be covered up, and it's a garage anyway. So all those studs were confirmed by me drilling holes through the drywall. Okay, so after I got the cabinet hung, I put the doors on, and the left one was a lot higher than the right one, so I had to slide, loosen up those two screws and slide that door down, and then, up, and then did the opposite to this one. So it's not perfect, and I think what happened is the cabinet probably got torqued sideways a little bit while I was screwing it in. But good enough for me. We are done with the second segment of the videos. So the top cabinets have all been made and hung on the wall with care, and we've already got them full of junk, so we're already using them. Like I said, we've got a beveled bottom edge right there, so I don't need door handles, and they're already shelves are in, they're already full of stuff, so they're already doing their job. This place looks a lot better than it did. So on to the next segment, which is going to be building and installing the bottom cabinets.